He lives in a big, noisy and crowded city with a busy rhythm of life. But he is interested in another world. A world with no fuss, where a person lives preserving the heritage of his ancestors and the precepts of nature. Konstantin Kuksin, an ethnographer, traveler, a current member of the Russian Geographical Society, as well as the founder and director of the Museum of Nomadic Culture in Moscow. Nomads of the Great Steppe are his favorite topic, and he can talk about it for hours. About the nomadic civilization that, like a patchwork quilt, covers our planet. We will talk about all of this on the sacred land of Ulytau. Welcome to Ulytau. Konstantin Kuksin in the new season of Dala project. My journey to Kazakhstan took longer. It took more time and bigger distances. As soon as the pandemic ended, I rushed to revive expedition projects that had been postponed. First, I traveled to the savannas of South Africa, where I hunted antelopes with Bushman tribes. Then I went to Mongolia, and now I am here in central Kazakhstan, in Ulytau. To understand what place Ulytau takes in the geography of Kazakhstan, including the sacred geography, I asked for the help of Bakhtiyar Kozhakmetov. Bakhtiyar is an expert in the history of Ulytau and, most importantly, the keeper of ancient traditions. I teach geography at school. From the point of view of classical geography, where is Ulytau located?
Но если про географическую Ултау, то она, конечно, шире, чем те рамки, которые сейчас имеются, административной границы. Скажем, Торгай,
Geographically, Ulytau goes beyond administrative borders. Torgai, Betpagdala, Korgalzhin are all geographically part of Ulytau. 12 rivers flow from Ulytau in different directions, including to the north. For example, we have the Terysakan River. It literally translates from Kazakh as flowing backwards. People think, why is it named like that? How does it flow backwards? In fact, it doesn't. In Turkic, Teris means towards the north. In the spring, when the water is high, you can take a boat and swim to the Arctic Ocean, because Terysakan flows into the Yesil River. Yesil flows into the Irtis River, which then flows into the Ob River and beyond. If you take a map of Kazakhstan and mentally draw a line from north to south and from east to west, Ulytau will be in the intersection, in the center of Kazakhstan. But unfortunately, far from any city or town. It's 700 kilometers from Ulytau to Karaganda, 900 kilometers to Nur-Sultan, 1500 kilometers to Almaty. To Kızılorda, towards the southwest, it's 500 kilometers. To the north, to Kostanay, 1000 kilometers.
Степи, которые созданы для кочевания, для выращивания лошадей и для этого степного образа жизни.
The land of Ulytau is a land filled with poetry, as is the land of Kazakhstan in general, the country of great archons. It would be very difficult to feel the charm of Ulytau without poetry. But I got lucky. I came across a Kazakh poet, Gaziz Yashtanayev. We got into a conversation. This conversation became very important to me.
Совершенно случайно мы разговорились, и этот разговор стал очень важным для меня. Газис, на многих тюркских языках
Gaziz. In many Turkic languages, uli or uluk means great, big or huge. And Tau means mountain. But I don't see a big mountain here. It's no comparison to the Tian Shan, for example. Why did Ulytau get the name of the Great Mountain? The main reason can be in the following. Academician Kanish Satpayev wrote in his scientific works that after the global flood, the water gradually receded, and Ulytau was the first to emerge from under the water. Although the place where Ulytau is situated is not so big, it is still located high above the sea level. If you look at the Ulytau rivers, you will notice that they flow in all four cardinal directions: to the west, to the north, to the east, and to the south. And this suggests that Ulytau is located on a hill. We shouldn't be the only ones to speak about the symbolic location of Ulytau. Geographers, geologists, and historians should study this feature. Scientists in general need to come together and study this comprehensively.
Ұлытауға байланысты ұлы деген сөздің мағынасы кең. Осында түнгі сағат қысты күні түнгі сағат 2-нің кезінде
I just talked to a young man and he told me that there is a veil hanging over Ulytau which needs to be removed for its aura to open.
Жабық тұр, аура жабық. Енді осы аураны ашу керек.
If you open the aura, then the divine light will shine from above and this land will begin to prosper. And everything will change in Kazakhstan. Therefore, we shouldn't say that these are all myths and fantasies. On the contrary, we must make a mental note and make every effort to open the aura of Ulytau.
Осы өңірдің мына аураның ашылуына қалай болғанда да қызмет етуіміз керек.
Ulytau удивительная земля, которая...
Ulytau is a marvelous land that gave the world a lot of great Batiars, great heroes. This is Joshi Khan, about whom Genghis Khan said, if a spring gets polluted, Joshi will clean it. If a tree falls, Joshi will lift it. This is Kadbuga Noyan, a great military commander who almost brought the Mongolian troops to the walls of Jerusalem. He almost took the city. If not for the betrayal, the Holy Land would have been in the hands of Kadbuga Noyan. In the later 15th, 16th centuries, there were other Batiars whose graves are still visible in the steppe behind us. Does the land of Ulytau fill people with a special energy? Or did Kazakhs of this area have special traditions of raising men that made them into strong heroes, Batiars?
Ал енді батырларды бір институтта оқытып, немесе бір...
There is no special institute or gym where heroes are trained. As history shows, the time prepared Kazakh Batiars, the time when the enemy attacked and the land needed protection.
Сияқты қажеттіліктер дайындады. Қазақ хандығы құрылғаннан бергі 15-ші ғасырдан 18-ші 19-ші...
This aim gave birth to Batiars. Let me name Batiars who came from Ulytau. This is Tolek Batir. Tolek's son Sandebai became a Batir too. In turn, Sandebai's son Yerdan was also a Batir. Thus, 3 Batirs came out of one family.
Төлек батырдың баласы Сандыбай да батыр болған. Сандыбайдың баласы Ерден де батыр болған. 3 батыр шыққан, 3 ұрпақтан.
If I go up to a person on the streets of Almaty or Nur-Sultan and ask, what do you know about Ulytau? What answer do you think I will get?
Ну, скорее всего, в первую очередь они скажут на территории Ултау.
First of all, they will say that tribes gathered on the territory of Ulytau and fateful events took place. These events influenced the formation of the Kazakh Khanate and, of course, Kazakhstan by extension. Joshi Khan lived here. His capital was located here and he was buried here. He is not only the eldest son of Genghis Khan, but he is also the father of Batu Khan, who invaded Eastern Europe and is the great-grandfather of all Kazakh Khans.
Прадедом всех казахских ханов.
The first thing I encountered here was the intoxicating aroma of wormwood. These amazing landscapes instantly reminded me of dear to my heart Mongolia. If I saw just the pictures, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between Ulytau and, for example, Karakorum, the capital of the Chengizids. Each nation chooses a landscape similar to its homeland. Joshi is no exception. He chose a place similar to Mongolia, and his son Batu chose the Volga region, also similar to Mongolia. So, Bakhtiyar, it looks like the wheel of history has been turning for 1,000 years on this dry, beautiful land and continues turning still. My main work is with children. How do they perceive the ancient sacred center and its history? How do we induce interest in them so that they would want to come here? Not because they were dragged here by schools or parents, but because they want to come here.
Ну, это, конечно, естественно, зависит от того, кто им передает эту историю, как преподносит. От наших учителей, как говорится, зависит. Но в Ултау есть все возможности. Даже взять одно место, вот Баскамыр называется, Талдсай. Когда едем с Жезказгана в Ултау, как раз посередине...
Naturally, it all depends on who teaches them history and how it is presented. Take, for example, Taldesai. This village is situated halfway when you drive from Zheskazgan to Ulytau. And there on a small piece of land, you can walk through history in just an hour. You can see a cave from the Stone Age. Archaeologists confirmed that it is from the Paleolithic era. Next to it is a Neolithic site with stone tools lying around everywhere. There is also a Bronze Age settlement which even had metallurgical furnaces. By visiting such small, but at the same time very rich in artifacts places, you can fascinate students.
Очень много памятников на одном маленьком пятачке. И вот таких пятачков в Ултау очень много. Поэтому, посещая такие объекты небольшие, но в то же время насыщенные, можно завлечь учеников.
Эй?
Қола дәуіріне жататын, металлургияға жататын қазақтың фольклорінде де аңыздар көп.
Many legends and fairy tales of the Kazakh folklore mention the Bronze Age. For example, the Yertostik fairy tale is an iconic work. It clearly testifies to the development of metallurgy.
Металлургияны туралы хабар береді. Енді Ұлытау жезқазған аймағы көне қола дәуіріндегі
In the Bronze Age, the Ulytau Zheskazgan region was one of the largest centers of metallurgy. And that's in the entire territory of Eurasia. When Alkay Margulan organized in 1946 the archaeological expedition to central Kazakhstan, he wrote in his works that in the Bronze Age, this land housed ancient settlements.
тұрақтардың бар екендігін өзінің еңбектерінде жазып өткен. Талдысай комплексі
Taldesai is a large complex that emerged during the Paleolithic era and has seen the Bronze Age and the Middle Ages. That is, a wide range of time is presented there. It suggests that life in Taldesai was in full swing from the ancient times, from the Stone Age to present day.
ол жерде тіршіліктің қайнап жатқандығын көрсетеді.
Bakhtiar. In Russian, for example, no one has heard anything about Ulytau except for maybe those who have relatives here or are descendants of migrants. How much do Kazakhs know about Ulytau? As our famous ethnographer Mirzatai Joldazbekov said, the very name of Mount Ulytau is ancient Turkic, means the Lord, Tengri, God. That is, this is the place to communicate with God. The area was revered by the Turkic people as well as the Oghuz and Kipchaks. Later, the Golden Horde and the Kazakh Khanate also held it in high esteem. Imagine that Ulytau has become a popular tourist destination in Kazakhstan. What would you show people first? What would bring them here? First of all, of course, the Ulytau, the sacred mountain, because the history of Ulytau is connected with the Ulytau peak. As I have already said, this place was revered in the era of the Turkic peoples, the Huns, the Oghuz and Kipchaks, the Golden Horde and the Kazakh Khanate. The rulers of all nomadic tribes wanted to be closer to this mountain, because they thought the closer you are to this mountain, to its top, the closer you are to God. And the closer you are to God, to Tengri, the more chances for your desires to come true. There are also places to commune with God in the Caucasus and Turkey, as well as Tuva and Khakassia, the republics within Russia. Last month we discovered that there is something in Yakutia. Yes, such names appear along the paths of the Turkic people's travel. Interestingly, these mountains are similar to each other, just as their meaning. People believed that these mountains were antennas. In the steppe, where there are not so many trees, the mountain is the world axis, where all three worlds come together. A famous Kazakh archaeologist, late Viktor Zaybert, came here once to examine Ulytau. He spent here more than 20 days and said that he had been looking for this place all his life. He said that in the Bronze Age, in Sarıarka plain, there had to be a place for the tribes to come for worship, like Jerusalem or Mecca. This is what is called Otuken in Turkic languages. And this worship place is here. I say, well, Mr. Zaybert, you are a scientist. We local historians can talk all we want, but you, as a scientist, need to prove it. And he explains that the three conditions are met here. This is the world of the living, the world of the gods, and the world of the dead. He showed them all. Most importantly, the sacred water passes through them, which is the Ulytau mountain river and the sacred spring. Nevertheless, as far as I know, Ulytau is not mentioned much in historical sources. What is this? An attempt to hide the sacred center from prying eyes and ears? Well, I think enough sources say that this is a sacred place. However, I must repeat myself, there are a lot of legends, oral legends about Ulytau. Remember, nomads primarily had an oral tradition. One elder told me an amazing story about how Zoroaster, more commonly known as Zardesh in Turkic world, stopped a war on the banks of a river. Generally, this bond with rivers and mountain peaks is very characteristic of Zoroastrianism, where all elements are deified. And the fact that the people keep the legends about Zoroaster many years after the coming of Islam is astounding. This is probably a sort of ethnographic proof that significant events in the life of the first prophet of Zoroastrianism took place on the land of Ulytau.
От дәуірі кезінде Заратуштра деген алғашқы адам пайғамбары.
In ancient times, when people worshipped the spirit of fire, lived the first prophet Zoroaster. After being expelled from his homeland, he wound up at the mountain top of Ulytau. At the time, a leader of one tribe died. People started killing his tribesmen and lay their bodies around the dead leader.
Сондай Заратуштра таудың басына қонақтап жатқан уақытында аспаннан, құдіреттен, Алладан хабар түседі, жарқ етіп хабар келеді.
So while Zoroaster was staying at Ulytau, a message came from heaven. It manifested like an epiphany. The Almighty told him, people are slaughtering each other down there. You must stop them.
Мені тыңдамайды дейді. Сөз біреу бар дейді болды. Содан төмен қарай түсті.
Zoroaster replied, will they listen to me? The Almighty said, you must. Zoroaster looked down and saw that the leader was dead and that the bodies of his tribesmen were being laid around him.
Зердеш келеді, тоқта, тоқта деп айқайлайды. Сосын мынау кім бізге тоқта деп айтатын?
Who dares to give us orders? Shouted the people. He shall be buried here himself, they uttered, heading towards him. At that moment, a ray of light blazed and those who were running fell. More people started making their way towards him, and once again, a dazzling beam flashed and they fell as well. This is when one from the crowd said, hey, stop, this must be happening for a reason. Let's talk to him and find out why people are killing each other. The crowd asked Zoroaster, who are you? Why do people murder each other? What is the reason? The prophet answered, I received an order from God saying that people are killing each other and that this must be stopped. There is Aybas Darisi burial mound near the river. This is where the leader of that tribe is buried. The burial mound is 6 meters long, 4 meters wide, and 3 meters high. The sacred history begins from ancient times, and this is not just any mountain. This is an ancient mountain, which is called the Great Mountain for a reason.
Жакбек агай, рахмет.
Jibek, thank you. A very interesting legend. Since I know a little about the history of Zoroaster, I had many thoughts about this. Surely you know that scientists are still arguing where Zoroaster lived and preached. Some say he lived in Arkaim, in the steppes of the southern Urals. Others say he lived in northern Iran. And perhaps the fact that the Kazakh people have kept the legends about Zoroaster for almost 3,000 years proves that he lived in your land as well.
Происходило на вашей земле. Спасибо.
И в мире сейчас очень хорошо.
Pilgrimage tourism is developing in the world right now because people want to believe in something. A lot of psychics come here, and there are a lot of instances of them going into a trance. When people say that we have bad roads and poor conditions, I say, but you are making a pilgrimage. And the pilgrimage must be a quest, a trial. That's how we make excuses for ourselves.
Через испытания.
И эта дорога,
И вот так мы себя оправдываем.
Очень важно. Ну что ж,
When you are preparing for an expedition to a new region, you are filled with anticipation. What will happen? What will you see? Who will you meet? It's like preparing for a date. I had a feeling that Ulytau will give me something delightful and extraordinary.
Ulytau подарит мне нечто удивительное и необычное.
I believe that in the future, Ulytau, namely Ulytau, will be of great touristic importance, even more so than Turkestan. Because Turkestan is closely tied with the figure of Khoja Ahmet Yasawi, who lived in the 11th century, while Ulytau has been a place of pilgrimage since the Bronze Age.
Эпохи бронзы.
The intuition of the traveler and explorer did not fail me again. Ulytau is a beautiful land filled with sunlight and the aroma of wormwood. This is not only a geographical, but also a sacred and spiritual center of Kazakhstan.
Центр Казахстана.